It's a pleasure for me to be here, and I am so honored to introduce to you our specialist of this morning, of this session. Juan José Reyes Valladares is an associate professor of English at Escuela, Agrícola Panamericana Zamorano. He has a bachelor's degree in foreign languages from Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Honduras, and a master's degree with a specialization in writing studies from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He has 15 years of experience teaching English in different educational levels and out of Honduras. His work also includes teacher training and curricular design of EFL, ESL programs. His research interests are language learning, motivation, language and culture, and rhetorical theory. JJ is a passionate art aficionado. Okay, so it's a pleasure to have you with us this morning, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that warm introduction, Dr. Ulloa, and thank you for having me. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Can you confirm that you can see it? The participants who are here?
Yes. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you. So welcome to my presentation, integrating critical thinking skills into the exploration of culture in EFL. I am thrilled to be here, and I hope you are as excited as I am to participate. We're going to be using a couple of platforms to make the presentation more interactive, so I will appreciate your active participation, okay? So the objectives for this session are, first, to define key concepts related to intercultural competence and critical thinking, but also to develop your own beliefs about the teaching of culture in your context, okay? And I want to start by saying that all the information that I'm going to share with you today has been taken from the online course with the same name as my presentation, Integrating Critical Thinking Skills into the Exploration of Culture in an EFL Setting. This course is offered by World Learning through the Open program. I took this course at the beginning of last year, just right before the pandemic, and it was a really wonderful experience to be part of. This is an 8-week program or course that really changed my vision about online learning. Before then, I was a little hesitant about the kind of learning that you do in online environments, and little did I know that right after the conference, we all had to jump into online teaching and learning, right? But it was really eye-opening for me. This is not a massive course where you don't know your classmates and you see hundreds of people. This is a course that's specifically for a group of people, a limited group of people, 20, 25 people, and you really get to know them in those 8 weeks. The instructor of the course is present there, guiding you through the activities. So it was a really wonderful experience. I want to invite you to participate in one of these courses through the online professional English network called Open. And here we have, I'm going to show you, this is the website to the Open program. And so in this website, you can find a lot of professional development opportunities, and like the course that I took, and also English teaching resources. You have the English teaching forum as well, where you can find lots of readings and materials for your classes. So one of the aspects of the course that is promoted is the idea of cascading new knowledge, which means to share information and experiences that I learned in the course and share it with other people who didn't have the opportunity to take the course. So that's exactly what we are doing here today. We're going to start the first activity going to menti.com. So if you can please go to that website, menti.com, and there is a code that you need. You see it here on the screen, 30385553. And there are 2 questions there. We're going to start trying to define in our own words the concepts of culture and critical thinking, okay? So let's going to present here. If you can, the people who are here in the Zoom room, go to menti.com, use the code. And then the question is, what words come to mind when you see the word culture? And we can see here people already writing the words. We see the word tradition. Very good.
Can you please share the code again?
Yes, it's 30385553. It's at the top of the screen.
Oh, got it.
Thank you. Let's see if we have more people participating on the Menti. We have more words now. We have the words food, language, conceptions. Very nice. Richness, unique. Excellent. And we can see how this word cloud is forming with words related to culture. We see food. Food is there twice. Good. I'm going to show you the next question, which is related to critical thinking, okay? So define critical thinking in one word. And try to remember all these terms that that people are writing on the word cloud. Can you see the question on the screen? For the participants who are here. Learning and analysis, creativity. Thank you. Are there any others? Other terms or words closely related to critical thinking? Objectivity, yes, that's great. That's awesome. Okay, let's come back to our presentation here. And thank you for your participation on the Menti website. So let's start talking about culture first. So anthropologist John Budley defined culture as what people think, make, and do. So I'm sure we can all agree that an integral part of learning a foreign language is acquiring some familiarity with the culture associated with it, right? And so this definition, it encompasses all the things that you mentioned in the Menti word cloud. And that definition brings us to Frank's model of culture, the 3P model, for perspectives, practices, and products. So what people think, what people do, and what people make. So what are the perspectives is what members of a culture think, feel, and value. So all these deep values that are ingrained in our culture. The practices are how members of a specific culture communicate and interact. And then the products are the things that we see, the tangible things of the culture, the things that we listen to, the things that we smell, the music, the typical food, the art, literature, etc. So, a very important part to be interculturally competent is for us as teachers to raise cultural awareness in the English language classroom. This is a fantastic reading that I highly recommend by Gerald Frank. And we're going to talk about some important aspects of this reading, but he states that for us to be competent, we need, and to understand other cultures, we need to really know our own culture first. And so we can guide our students to become more aware using different strategies, using different activities, different techniques that are also going to foster that critical thinking that we want to connect with the cultural awareness. So here we have some questions. I'm going to ask Liliana, if you can help me read the questions on the screen.
Of course. Yeah.
Thank you.
What behaviors reflect our culture and how are they learned and shared? What important factors, social, religious, and economic, influence our culture? What are some important traditions that are unique to our country? What ideals and values band our culture together? How does culture in our country function as a way of humans to live with one another? What symbols are prevalent in our culture?
Thank you, Liliana. Thank you so much. So these questions and more, right? Not only these questions, you can come up with other questions that are aimed at raising that cultural awareness. You can do in a myriad of ways. You can have open whole class discussions with your students. You can have a think, pair, share kind of activity where students are put in pairs, they discuss the questions and then they share with the class. Now that we are using virtual environments more often, then you can also open a discussion board, a forum where students can post a reply or a response to any of these questions or to all of the questions. So it depends on the kind of activity and the kind of goal, also the kind of language skill that you want to practice with your students. He also talks about the idea of building a culturally friendly classroom. And so to become more aware about the culture around us, he gives in this article that you can find it on the Forum Journal. He gives different suggestions of activities that we can do. And I'm sure that some of these activities you already do in your classroom. He talks about cultural collections. Those are the traditional, authentic materials that we use in the classroom to expose our students to different holidays or different customs from a specific English-speaking country, or you want to expose them to a kind of food, a specific movie or a song. So those are the cultural collections. And here he also advises us to use the web, use the internet to get more information about different parts of the products. This is more related to the products of the culture, the last P. But also he talks about cultural informants. And in cultural informants, I've done this in my classes, and I can assure you that it's really effective, bringing native speakers or people from a specific culture into your class to talk about their culture, that is really going to become meaningful for the students, relevant. They are going to engage with this person, asking them questions about the culture, and then they're going to confirm or disconfirm notions that they already had, maybe some stereotypes that they had about the culture. That's going to be broken by bringing a native speaker into your classroom. Role plays would be another technique or another activity that you can use. As a teacher, you can design scenarios for students to come up with a role play or a conversation based on a cultural bump, probably. And this you can do depending on the level of the student. So you can have different levels of difficulty depending if the students are beginner, intermediate, or advanced. Cultural observations. So this is taking the cultural collections that we mentioned a few moments ago and taking it beyond, and not only describing what they are, but also critically evaluate them, thinking about a specific movie, a specific book or poem, and finding connections between this product and your own culture, and what are things that are different, things that are the same, perspectives of life from this culture that are different or that are similar to ours, okay? And finally, he talks about culture journals, keeping a reflection log, having students keep a journal for them to practice their writing, their fluency, but also thinking about all the activities that are happening in the classroom related to culture. Okay. And then the last thing that I want to share with you about this reading is the iceberg analogy, the cultural iceberg analogy from Edward Hall, in which he has this 3 levels that are in an iceberg analogy: the surface culture, the things that everybody sees or thinks about when they think about a culture. So if you have tried to share your culture, for example, with people from another country, then you talk about the products, right? You talk about your favorite typical food or the kind of music that people listen to in that particular culture. So the products. But the practices and the perspectives, so the ways that people interact on a daily basis, how they greet each other, how you interact with a friend versus a colleague at work or an older person, the perspectives, what is right and wrong, the deep values of the culture. These are things that are not easily noticeable. People focus on the products more, and so they stay on the tip of the iceberg. And that's when a lot of assumptions and stereotypes happen, right? Because people don't go deep into really getting to know the culture of the L2 in this case. So he suggests an activity where students list different aspects of their own culture for every level. And from doing this analysis of your own culture, then you can go ahead and try to analyze a different culture. So I tried this with my students, and I want to share a little bit of my experience with you. This is my group of second-year students from Zamorano. They were in the low intermediate level. So this is A2, B1 proficiency level. And one of the blessings that we have at Zamorano is that there are students from all over Latin America. So the impact of culture and being intercultural competent is really big for our school. So I tried this activity that of the iceberg analogy with my students, and what I did was to have students from the same country get in small groups or in pairs and design a poster using the iceberg analogy and trying to get them thinking about the surface level, the products of their culture, but also getting deeper, thinking about the values, the ways they interact with one another, the practices and perspectives, the other two P's. But as we can see in these images, it was quite difficult for some of the groups. They only stayed on the surface level. So confirming what Frank said in his article, that it's easy to just go into the tangible things of the culture, but and even for people from the own culture, it's difficult to really verbalize these things because they are ingrained, they are socially transmitted to us. Other groups, they were able to talk about language and gestures, things that were right and wrong in their cultures. So I guess it also depends on the level of the students in this case, right? Because this requires a little bit of more complex kind of thinking. But this is the kind of critical thinking that we want to foster. Then I took it a little bit further, and after they had presented their posters to the class, then I asked them to pair up with a partner or a classmate from a different country. So here we have an example of people from Ecuador and Honduras. And what I was trying to achieve in this activity was for them to really identify the three analogy sections, the surface, subsurface, and deep, but also I wanted them to find those meeting points, those similarities that we have among cultures. And in this case, for these meeting points are very important for people to understand a different culture and to start thinking about how to avoid misunderstandings and avoid conflict, which is the ultimate goal, right? Here we have another example of this activity that students carried out in pairs with people from different countries. Okay, let's move on to the next activity. This is critical thinking now, and we're going to use Google Jamboard to write a definition of critical thinking. I'm going to share the link with you. Let me just, okay. I'm going to share the link on the chat. So if you can please click on the link. Click on the link that I posted in the chat. And this is, I really like to use this in my classes because it's very user-friendly. The way to participate is very simple. Just click on one of the sticky notes, and then you can select a different color, write your definition there, and then just click on save, and you're going to see the post-it note on the board. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to come up with a short and simple definition for critical thinking. There were some very interesting words in the Menti activity at the beginning related to critical thinking. So maybe you want to tie together those concepts and write a short definition. So 2 minutes to do this. See, something happened with this. Sorry, the person who wrote the definition, can you please post it again? Yes, thank you. The process of, I'm going to read what we are writing, what we are seeing here. The process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and evaluating information to reach an answer or conclusion. Very complete answer. You're using all the different thinking skills from Bloom's taxonomy there, guiding or leading students to think outside of the box, or perhaps making them realize they never thought of. Yes, absolutely a very, very beautiful definition of critical thinking. We have the word your own analysis. Yes, this is great. And this is something that I imagine is the same for you. I always tell my students, I want to see your own analysis, your own conclusions about anything that we are discussing or talking about in class. So thank you for those definitions. Let's go back to the presentation here. Okay, here we are. And the definition that we got in the course is that critical thinking is a systematic form of analytical thought that reduces biases by taking into account multiple factors related to the object of analysis and considering these from multiple perspectives. So important words here are multiple perspectives, multiple factors, reduce bias, right? A systematic form of analytical thought, things that you also mentioned in your definitions. And for this to happen and to merge this definition with culture, we're going to talk about active listening or active reading. I'm going to ask Armando to help me read the quote on the screen. Hi, Armando. We can't hear you. Or maybe a volunteer who wants to read the quote that you see on the screen.
Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Stephen R. Covey.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ulloa. So I'm sure we've all experienced this, right? We are trying to have a conversation with a friend, with a family member, with a colleague at work, but they are not really understanding what they are saying. They're just replying to what we are saying, but without listening actively. And that, if we do that, if we teach our students to be active listeners or active readers, they are going to apply all the critical thinking skills that you mentioned, and they are going to become more intercultural competent. So here we have some techniques for active listening, and now that we are using more and more online classes, active reading that we can teach our students as they participate in discussion boards. So the first technique would be to use your full attention when you're listening to a person, when you're reading a post, be fully concentrated on what they are saying. And this also, in my experience, it applies for me as a teacher when a student is participating in class. And sometimes I'm not really listening to what they are saying because I want them to participate in class, but I also have my agenda, I have my lesson plan, and I want to move on. But it is very important that if you want students to participate, that you really, really pay attention to what they're saying and respond accordingly. So the second technique would be to reflect before responding, to think about what you're going to say before you do it, making sure that you understand what the other person wrote. And if you don't really understand, or if there is something that is not clear, that you ask for clarification in this case. That can also happen in writing in a discussion board. Sometimes what the students are saying in a post or what they are saying in a class comes from a place of emotion, right? So we need to recognize that emotional side, be empathetic about what they are saying, about their opinions, and offer alternatives to a specific problem that they are posing. Sharing your point of view, knowledge, or experience, this is something that is really important. And if you think about giving feedback, we follow all these steps, right? We read our students' assignments, we reflect, then if we have to give a correction, we offer alternatives, but we also share our experience, our knowledge. We tell them why something is not correct, or we request more information. So there are many different levels in or situations that we can apply these techniques for active listening when students are participating in class, when they are listening to each other in a conversation, by participating in a discussion board, or when giving feedback to our students in an assignment. There are some phrases that you can also include here that you can teach your students, some chunks of language that are going to be helpful for them if they want to apply this in their own conversation. So they can learn some phrases to restate or summarize information, like, let me see if I'm clear about this. If they are not clear about what the other person is saying, they can learn these phrases to make sure that they understand. Let me see if I understand. This is what I think I hear you saying. These chunks of language are really, really helpful. If you want the students to be more empathetic, this seems really important to you. You appear to be feeling, or that sounds really frustrating, exciting, scary. To offer alternatives, we have more examples here. Is it possible that, like, asking questions for the students to think more critically? Would you agree with the idea of, or I wonder if, and here we have more phrases that you can share with your students to share your point of view or to request more information. Can you tell me more about this experience? What do you think would happen if, etc., etc. And you can also come up with more expressions that you can teach your students to become more active listeners or active readers. So intercultural competence means to be able to interact successfully with people who are from cultures different than yours. And in here, somebody can argue and say, well, my students are all from the same culture, but don't forget the concept of microcultures. We're all different, and within the same country, there are different regions, and every region has differences. And sometimes conflicts arise because people do not have that awareness of really understanding people from a different region. If people are from the same region, there are different values in every family, different perspectives, different practices, different products. So this model applies not only for comparing two different cultures or countries or societies, but within the same culture, we have different microcultures that we can also practice to become more intercultural competent, okay? I want to hear about your experience. So there are some questions here that I want to hear your answers from. How do you integrate cultural awareness in your classroom? I'm sure you have done it. So this is a place that we can all share best practices and try to replicate in our classroom, steal ideas from each other. What activities have you carried out in your classes that have been effective and that you want to share with us? What topics are important to discuss? So for this, I'm going to use Padlet for this activity, And I'm going to share the Padlet link in the chat. So if you can please click on the link that I posted in the chat. And I don't know if perhaps somebody can help me copying those links, and maybe if you want to post them on the YouTube channel, so more people who are not in the Zoom session and want to participate, they could get the link from the YouTube chat. So we have about, I don't know, a couple of minutes, maybe 5 minutes, so you can think about things that you have done in your class to integrate cultural awareness, share an experience, share an activity with us. You can do it using this Padlet. And then we're going to share some of those, read them. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes for that. Dr. Ulloa?
Yes, as you wait, we have some comments and questions if you want me to, okay?
Sure, of course, yeah.
From the YouTube channel, we have Sergio Reyes Crespo. He says, hello from Mexico City. Culture and critical thinking are two pillars in modern education. And he also asked, he says, how can I make students speak more in online classes?
You said speak more in online classes?
Yes. How can you encourage them, or how can you make them speak more in online classes?
Yeah, I think it's a struggle. It's been a struggle for all of us, right? And in the keynote conference, the very first one, when we started this conference on Thursday, I was, I feel that when Dr. Kling was talking about her experience in her teaching context and how students were having their cameras off and they were not as motivated as they were in face-to-face classes, I felt a little bit relieved, because sometimes we feel alone, right? We feel that it's only our students who don't want to participate, and maybe we are doing something wrong, but it's something that is happening everywhere, because students were not used to this modality of learning. I would say, to specifically that question, that if we include topics that are more meaningful for the students, and I do believe that raising cultural awareness is one of them, students are going to feel more engaged in the lesson, and therefore they're going to participate more in class, speak more, and think more. So in a country like Mexico, where culture is so big, and if you want to explore different cultural aspects, either products or perspectives and practices, I do feel that students are going to respond positively to that, because people like talking about what they know. And culture is so ingrained in every person that we know what to say and we have opinions about it. And then you can engage students in some kind of debates, or like I said, one of the activities suggested by Gerald Frank was to have role plays. Those kind of activities where students interact among themselves are going to help them motivate more and speak more in class. That's what I would say. Let me share my screen again, see if we don't have any posts on Padlet yet, but don't worry about it. I'm going to leave it open if you wanna post after the conference. If you want to share something here, this board is going to be open, and then you can come back and read what your colleagues are saying from different countries, and maybe, like I said, replicate some of these ideas in your class. I see here students do presentations. Wait, I saw something. I've given the opportunity to my students to talk about the place they come from and share some of the most important aspects about their traditions by filling a diagram or just by talking, a circle time. I asked them where they come from the first day. Honduras is very rich in traditions, and students love to speak when they have prior knowledge about the topic the teacher wants them to share. Excellent. This is an excellent activity. And as you start talking about the products, that's going to lead you to the more complex parts of culture, the practices, how people interact, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, the values, what is right, what is wrong. And that's going to develop more their critical thinking skills. Are there any other questions or comments so far? Okay. Well, I want to come back to this idea of cascading new knowledge and invite all of you, the people who have participated in this wonderful conference, to do the same, because I am sure that there are many colleagues of yours who didn't have the opportunity to attend this conference. So it is your responsibility, your job to cascade this knowledge, to share with people in your local school activities and new ideas that you learned in this conference, and tell them about it and work together collaboratively to innovate in your classes. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
How can we contact you? And if we're interested in cascading knowledge and also in cascading what you shared this morning, especially when you have done this with the Open program, which is a program that is sponsored by the State Department, and we apply to these courses through the American Embassy here in Honduras. But how can we contact you so we can get more knowledge on cascading knowledge and how to do it and when to do it and when are you available?
Yes, thank you for that, and I'm really passionate about this topic. I believe that one of the reasons why there are conflicts and misunderstandings around the globe and in our local context is because people are not that aware of the differences that we have. And so this topic really speaks to me, and if anybody wants to talk to me and work together, I'm definitely willing and open. You can contact me. I have my email address at the end. It's jreyes@zamorano.edu, and definitely anybody who's also passionate about this topic and that you want to get together, continue this conversation, and possibly, take this to another collaboration among different schools, I'm definitely open to that. I was going to say that Dr. Kara McBride, who's the lead designer of this course, I got to meet her. I had the privilege of meeting her this week in the context of this presentation, and for me that was such an honor. And so I've been kind of invited to co-present with her on this topic based on a cultural bump or a cultural misunderstanding. And so that is only one example of the many, many things that can happen now that we are all online and that we can collaborate this way. Definitely, I am on board for continuing this conversation, this discussion, and sharing what I know and learning from other colleagues around the world. These are the references that I used for this presentation, and thank you for your attention. I don't know if there are any more questions, comments.
Hello.
Hi.
I just wanted to say that it was a wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed listening to you and, well, participating on all of those links you were sharing. It is very important for us teachers to know the background of our students, right? And it is very wonderful also to learn that even though within the same country, we can share things in our classroom that enhance the process, specifically in the oral production, right? Because our students, sometimes they don't want to speak. But when they have the opportunity of like speaking or talking about something they know and they really enjoy, and talking about culture, it's something that we have to take into account, as you have been saying, right? Because it gives us and students the opportunity to develop critical thinking based on others' reality and context. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liliana. And I just want to say that there is a way to connect this kind of information, this kind of cultural skills or knowledge with your language skills, okay? So there is a way to connect this to practicing reading, writing, speaking, listening, lexical benefits, learning more vocabulary. You can address pronunciation problems that might end up in cultural misunderstanding. So there is a whole lot of things that you can do that are not only going to help your students in their cultural knowledge, but also hone or polish their language skills as well. Suzanne, I see your hand up.
Yes. Hi. Good morning.
Again.
Yes, a pleasure. I just wanted to add, JJ, because this is a topic that I particularly love as well. And I believe that when it comes to cultural awareness, it's also about bringing hard conversations to the classroom in a safe space. I think one of the most important things about intercultural competency is creating the safe space, where our students can come together and talk about things like systematic racism, how they recognize it around them, do they recognize it, discussing topics like color, but in a safe space where they get to share their opinions, understand what is happening in the world outside and the world inside. So I think it is very, very important to, we talk about reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And I always say that culture is the number 5. That is definitely the one that I would add in everything. So JJ, thank you for sharing. It was pretty awesome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that comment. And yes, as a teacher, you don't need to be afraid of embracing those conversations. Like Suzanne said, in a safe space and listening to students, to what they have experienced, it's very, very important and valuable. And that's really going to make a difference in the students' lives as well.
We have comments. We have your audience on YouTube, and they have been posting comments. Great presentation, congratulations. And so they're really pleased on the session you've been presenting. Also, there is a comment from Carmen Cristina Ramos, and she says, sometimes they don't want to share when they have their cameras on. And as Suzanne just shared, that could be, that's talking about a safe environment. would it be a safe environment keeping the cameras off?
That's a very good question. I think that there are different ways for students to express themselves. And if a particular student is shy and they have this introvert personality, it's really not a good idea for them to be pushed, right? But they can express their ideas and their insights in a different way. Maybe they can do it on a post in discussion board. Or keeping a journal, knowing that they are going to be the only ones reading them. So the goal here is for them to give those insights, but it doesn't need to be necessarily in front of everybody in class. So this might be easier for extrovert students, but there are different ways that we can do this in using different techniques. I would say writing for shy students.
Some of the people are asking for your email address. If there is an email address you might want to share with them.
Yes, I'm sharing my screen again, and here is my email: jreyes@zamorano.edu. That's my work email. And I welcome questions or comments or collaborations. And I'm very happy again to have been part of this conference. Thank you for the invitation, Dr. Ulloa, and I hope to see you.
Doctor. I'm Dr. Rommel from the Philippines. So I appreciate your presentation. I would just like to share one of the techniques that I used in my classroom, specifically to your example on the activity that you asked your student in the classroom about what is critical thinking, right? So having prepared with your definition of what is critical thinking with your resources, of course, one technique there is combining all the answers of the students. Why we need to combine the answers of the students away from the definition of the book or your resources, that you are boosting and giving value on their strength, their confidence, and their knowledge, or whatever prior knowledge that they have shared in your classroom. So you could be able to have their, to appreciate what they have shared in the classroom. So in a sense that some teachers or some professors are, they said, bookish, or they have prepared their definition on that, saying that you need to combine. So as a teacher or as a professor, you have the blackboard or whiteboard, then find the common and the appropriate word taken from each and every one, each of the answer or each answer, so that they will appreciate and they will feel the confidence the next day, the next time they would say something, that they would not be afraid of sharing something. That's the other thing that I could share to you.
Yes, that's a great comment. That's a really, really valuable point, and something that I certainly like to do. And it goes against your teacher nature, right? Because you want to just give them the right answer, or you want to move on with the next step of your lesson plan. But it's not as effective as if, like Dr. Rommel is saying here, empowering students and giving their background knowledge a place in the classroom, and letting students know that their opinions do matter for the class and for you. Yeah. Thank you.
Another one, sir, another one, doctor, is that, in the different places in the world, so we face differences, of course, in time of pandemic. Okay, so some of the nation states, they have very strong connection or connectivity. Unlike here in the Philippines, so you were asked about turning on the camera. Okay, so here in the Philippines, we found different strategies and approaches on how to determine whether the students are on the different characteristics or they were afraid of or something that. So, but we have to be aware that sometimes students are not turning on their camera because they are not really paying attention, or they may be busy, or they are doing something, or they are out of the class, just only checking in their ID. Their ID is only checked in here in the classroom or Google or Zoom, but their attention is not present. Okay, so we must all be aware that not all the time that's we just find their characteristics, but in the essence of their alibi sometimes, or the parents have told them to do so, or some household chores, or they go to the market, something like that. So we teachers must be aware on this situation or experiences, because if some students know that their classmate is not really shy, but doing something or out of the class, but the ID is checked in. So it is a negative point also to the teachers, because the teachers cannot able to determine that the teachers are not aware on what is really happening on that class. Okay, so that is just only a sharing to all of you here in our if you are online class or conducting online classes rather than face to face, we must be aware on these situations. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comment.
Muchísimas gracias por los comentarios. Thank you very much. See, I forgot I was in English. So thank you very much for your comments and for your questions. This has been a great session. We thank Juan José Reyes for sharing with us his expertise. I would let you close your presentation, your session, and thank you again very much, and I'll give you time to wrap up your presentation.
I just want to say again, thank you for having me. This was a great experience, and it's been a great conference with wonderful topics and new ideas for us to apply in our classrooms. So I look forward to keeping the conversation going, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for being a part of this conference and also of this presentation. We will see you in a few minutes in the rest of the sessions we have, and very soon in the closing ceremony of the conference. Thank you very much.
Is critical thinking, right? So having prepared with your definition of what is critical thinking with your resources, of course, one technique there is combining all the answers of the students. Why we need to combine the answers of the students away from the definition of the book or your resources, that you are boosting and giving value on their strength, their confidence, and their knowledge, or whatever prior knowledge that they have shared in your classroom. So you could be able to have their, to appreciate what they have shared in the classroom. So in the sense that some teachers or some professors are, they said, bookish, or they have prepared their definition on that, saying that you need to combine. So as a teacher or as a professor, you have the blackboard or whiteboard, then find the common and the appropriate word taken from each and every one, each of the answer, each answer, so that they will appreciate and they will feel the confidence the next day, the next time they would say something, that they would not be afraid of sharing something. That's the other thing that I could share to you.
That's a great comment. That's a really, really valuable point, and something that I certainly like to do. And it goes against your teacher nature, right? Because you want to just give them the right answer, or you want to move on with the next step of your lesson plan. But it's not as effective as if, like Dr. Rommel is saying here, empowering students and giving their background knowledge a place in the classroom, and letting students know that their opinions do matter for the class and for you. Yeah. Thank you.
Another one, sir, another one, doctor, is that, you know, in the different places in the world, so we face differences, of course, in time of pandemic. Okay, so some of the nation states, they have very strong connection or connectivity. Unlike here in the Philippines, so you were asked about turning on the camera. Okay, so here in the Philippines, we found different strategies and approaches on how to determine whether the students are on the different characteristics, or they were afraid of, or something that. So, but we have to be aware that sometimes students are not turning on their camera because they are not really paying attention, or they may be busy, or they are doing something, or they are out of the class, just only checking in their ID. Their ID is only checked in here in the classroom or Google or Zoom, but their attention is not present. Okay, so we must all be aware that not all the time that's we just find their characteristics, but in the essence of their alibi sometimes, or the parents have told them to do so, or some household chores, or they go to the market, something like that. So we teachers must be aware on this situation or experiences, because if some students know that their classmate is not really shy, but doing something or out of the class, but the ID is checked in, so it is a negative point also to the teachers, because the teachers cannot able to determine that the teachers are not aware on what is really happening on that class. Okay, so that is just only a sharing to all of you here in our if you are online class or conducting online classes rather than face-to-face, we must be aware on these situations. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comment.
Muchísimas gracias por los comentarios. Thank you very much. See, I forgot I was in English, so thank you very much for your comments and for your questions. This has been a great session. We thank Juan José Reyes for sharing with us his expertise. I would let you close your presentation, your session, and thank you again very much, and I'll give you time to wrap up your presentation.
I just want to say again, thank you for having me. This was a great experience, and it's been a great conference with wonderful topics and new ideas for us to apply in our classrooms. So I look forward to keeping the conversation going, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for being a part of this conference and also of this presentation. We will see you in a few minutes in the rest of the sessions we have, and very soon in the closing ceremony of the conference. Thank you very much.